Linux OTC. Welcome to episode 73. I'm Bill.
I'm Charlie.
I'm Jim.
And I'm Majid.
Happened.
Yeah, I know exactly. Normally it's kind of like, how many Linux nerds does it take to know the alphabet? So
welcome to Jim. Welcome to Jim. Okay. Yep, I screwed it up. Me.
Oh,
Don't
see,
at me.
it can only last so long, innit? And as per usual, Hauser, you had to F it up.
I had to throw the old monkey wrench in there. Yeah, welcome to OTC, Jim. Many of you might know him from Mintcast, and he's got a couple other shows. What other shows you got?
Linux Shortcut, wasn't it?
Yes, I've done a few episodes as the Linux Shortcut on YouTube.
You've got to do more because that is such an amazing name. That and GNU 2 Linux has got to be some of the best naming convention I've seen in a long time.
Yeah, I mean, if nothing else, you'll be able to sell them on, probably. Do you know what I mean? It's like when people buy domain names.
I was just going to say, that's a good domain to scalp right there.
Isn't it?
Yeah.
I suppose we should talk some Linux, right?
Yeah, or at least some BSD. There's been a lot of buzz on the channels about
yeah. Okay, so I did actually want to talk to Jim about BSD, but before I do that, right, can I, I'm not expecting anybody to have, but did anybody listen to Distro Hopper's Digest, the latest episode?
Not yet.
Okay, that's fine.
I started listening.
The very latest one? No.
Yeah. No, that's fine. The reason why is because I had a little bit, because I listened back to it the other day, once it'd been released and once Dale had done all the audio editing and stuff. And I realized I'd made a little bit of a hot take at the end. So I had, spoiler alert, I suppose. I reviewed Pika OS, which Eric, I think, had been mentioning at the last OTC, I think.
Right.
Anyway, I'm not going to bore you with the full review. But there was an interesting point which came to me, which was that it's basically a Debian, a modified Debian, right? Made, like Debian made easy, sort of, with its own kind of character and its own kind of identity, with, animal mascots and extra repos and certain things that, configured out of the box, like multimedia codecs and some gaming stuff and all sorts of stuff. And I sat there and I thought to myself, is this what this is the point that I made. Is this what Ubuntu was in the early days? Because I got into Linux 2011. Yeah, 2011, because that's when I passed my final fellowship exam. And so Ubuntu had been around for 5-6 years already. Linux had been around obviously since the early 90s, right? And the next day after having said that at the on the thing, I was watching a YouTube channel, Utux. I think I've sent some of the stuff before up on Discord. It's the guy who's got the AI voice, was because he's not an English speaker, and so he uses AI to narrate. Yeah, but yeah, and he made a video about Ubuntu, the most important Linux distribution ever, whether you like it or not. Whether you've got positive feelings or negative feelings about it. And he went through the whole kind of, a lot of the stuff was already known, Mark Shuttleworth and all that sort of, he's the space tourist, the benevolent dictator, the discussions around Mir and Upstart, going against the kind of RHEL Fedora takeover is the way I think he put it as, of Linux space in the early 2010s, mid 2010s. And so again, I wondered to myself, actually, was I right in saying that something like this Pika OS with its kind of, own charm, but based on, steady foundations, before doing its own thing, with packaging formats and stuff like that, is this what Ubuntu was like right at the beginning?
I have never, all the way back to the beginning, and I think the first version of Ubuntu I used was like 12.04 or something like that. I have never felt like Ubuntu reminded me of Debian.
Oh, okay, interesting.
It's just never felt that way to me. And I mean, because there's I don't know if you can feel or you can see some of Ubuntu in Mint. You can feel some of the presence of Ubuntu in Zorin or some of these, other derivatives or what have you. But you don't really feel a lot of Debian in Ubuntu and I don't know if that's just because of the way Debian is built, that once you go on from that point, then anything you do is going to completely change the user-facing experience,
I mean, is also so this is as I said, because I wasn't around at those early days when it comes to Linux. My assumption has, and as someone who hasn't used Debian that much, do you know what I mean? I've only really used it as a distro hop type thing, or LMDE probably, which is not obviously vanilla Debian. I remember I tried out Debian first time properly on a production system last year when Trixie came out. And I thought, okay, let's have a go at this. So it's not something I've ever used that commonly. So I don't know how big the difference was between Debian circa 2006 to Ubuntu 2006. But it is true, is it not, that the back end was all Debian. Yes, the front might have been different. The kind of the shop, front was different. Desktop might have been different.
Yeah, because the experience of using Debian to this day, I suppose, unless you've got, either GNOME or KDE Plasma on top of it, the experience of using vanilla Debian today, in my opinion, more resembles using vanilla Arch. Because you're using command line
how long
tools.
does it take to get Bill to say the words?
Well,
Arch?
I mean, what else is
Never
there
heard
quite
of
like
Arch.
that?
What's Arch? Anybody ever heard of Arch before? Never heard of it before.
But no,
and
I think it's
not
true though.
something that you've mentioned again and again and again and again.
I think it's true though, because you're using command line tools to update your system, presumably. I mean, yeah, I know you can. GNOME and KDE have got their graphical tools that I suppose work just as well. But they don't have there's not a tool like Mint's Software Center. Is that what it's called?
Software Manager, I think it's
Software Manager, where it is actually a tool that's designed by the distro team from the ground up to keep the distribution updated in a way that they have seen fit, so when that's kind of what I meant when I said when you put anything on top of Debian, then you've completely changed the experience, because now you're using graphical tools. I mean, not everybody does, I know, but there's no reason not to use graphical tools to update your system on anything Ubuntu and above, because those tools are made by the distribution developers, and they're made to work well with those distributions. I'm not saying that's a bad thing, because it's not. If Debian wasn't one of the best stable bases to build a distribution on, then people just wouldn't do it. It's shown time and time again for a lot of years now that it absolutely is. So you don't get the feeling, and it would probably be years for normal people to understand that they're using, like, if you give somebody Mint or you give somebody Zorin or something like that, they wouldn't have any concept of Ubuntu underneath it, let alone Debian. True. And when you explain that whole thing to them, they just kind of accept that you know what you're talking about, and it must be something that's true, but it's clearly not something they need to understand.
Yeah, no, that's a good point.
I consider Ubuntu just Debian with more advanced drivers on. That's basically it for me. I mean, like Pika for me is I think that's Debian SID, so that's just the latest version. It'd be more like Rhino Linux if you compare it with Ubuntu. But
Rhino Linux is something I've been tempted to try, actually.
Yeah, that's like their sort of bleeding edge
Yeah.
it's going, I don't know. But Pika
Just
looks really
riding the
nice, but it
development
is
channel.
a little bit. Yeah, that's all it is. Yeah, it's just the latest and greatest without much testing. But I mean, I use LMDE. I love it because I don't use up-to-date software, up-to-date hardware, should I say. So there's no need for me to use Ubuntu. Why would I use Ubuntu if I don't use the latest and greatest hardware? I'm happy with being one step behind, and then I can use Debian. But smart.
No PPA access with LMDE.
No, you don't know. But I mean, but
But
I don't.
but there is a
I'm
thing,
a flat
isn't there?
pack person, so.
You can add other if you've got something like Element, for example. They don't go with a PPA. They go down to the Debian level and they make Debian repositories.
Yeah.
Which
you can always just run it. I've just switched now to Cloudflare One client, so I've abandoned Tailscale that I've moved to that, and it just gives you a script. It runs it, and you so you're just using Warp, which is fantastic. I'm really loving it at the moment, and you it just gives you a script, so it just installs its own source. You don't have to have a PPA, but you've got the information. That's
So why did you move away from Tailscale? Any particular reason?
Well, Tailscale's a bit of a pain, I find. One, it's not really a VPN, so it doesn't. I mean, VPN, it is a VPN, and this is sometimes where people get confused. VPN just means virtual private network.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's when we think of VPNs, we often think about the privacy side, where it gets channeled and then they delete all your what you've done. Anything you've done is being deleted, whether it be used in RAM or just deleted after you've done it. So, but a VPN is just creating this network. So, and Tailscale doesn't. It just sends all your traffic to your home, and then from home it goes out. So if you do visit something you shouldn't be visiting, it's just the same. It's just coming from your home. But it just becomes complicated if you want to get an SSLs. It's quite. You have to keep going to the command line. Where I found now with Cloudflare, not everybody likes Cloudflare. It's just super simple. I just set up my Cloudflare tunnel. I don't need to put a password. Well, I do have a password protect, but I don't need to, because if my Cloudflare tunnel isn't turned on, you just can't access my home server. And now together with I'm using Zimmer OS, which I love, and now I've got everything's running like an absolute dream. So, but I mean, getting back to the original point though, this is there's no problem with that, not having a PPA or even a Debian file. It just gives you a script, you run it, and voila, now it's updating just like it would do a PPA.
Sounds a bit like Arch, a user repository, just a script and then it sorts it out. Does that sound familiar?
I don't know what you're talking about.
So Jim, you've been getting involved in the whole BSDs. I mean, I know you reviewed it for in the past and stuff like that. How come?
Why? Well, I after exploring and learning about Linux for the last 2.5 years, I just thought it was a natural extension to try, another so-called Unix-like operating system, and I quickly determined that FreeBSD was probably the most useful one as a desktop environment, and I wanted to see how far I could take it. Could I effectively replicate everything I'm doing on Linux Mint on BSD? And I specifically chose GhostBSD because that was a, BSD, I use air quotes, distro or a variant of FreeBSD, which is designed to have a built-in desktop environment and a whole suite of software. I called it, kind of like the Linux Mint of FreeBSD, as opposed to like Arch, which is what installing FreeBSD is like if you're doing it like regular, vanilla FreeBSD, until you got to build your system, starting from a TUI and every single application and everything else. So, and my experiment was very successful. For the past few months, I've had a desktop computer over to my left, and I, first off, most everything worked right off the bat. I was very impressed with how
Wi-Fi worked.
Why?
Did your
Well,
Wi-Fi work?
here's the thing. I purchased this desktop for $20 off Craigslist, and it had no Wi-Fi.
Oh,
But
okay.
I had a 20-plus-year-old little Wi-Fi USB adapter, Linksys, like, the old G standard from
Yeah.
20-something years ago, and I put that in the back of the desktop, and it instantly worked. So, yes, it worked for
That's
me
nuts.
with the adapter. The audio worked, everything worked off the bat, and GhostBSD came with a whole suite of software, just like Linux Mint, the Firefox, not the ESR, the regular latest Firefox, Thunderbird, and, all kinds of other utilities. And so effectively, if you just handed it to someone, go, hey, here's a computer, they have everything they need. I didn't have any obstacles I had to surmount until I started getting into more and more obscure things, specific software that I like to use, game playing aids and very, very obscure things, and that very particular things that I am accustomed to. And even then, one by one, I was able to check them all off the list and get them working with minimal effort or replace them. So I was very, very happy. However, you've queued me up because I'm going to go off on a rant now.
Okay, go on. Go on. That's what we like. That's what
Okay.
she's there for.
Go for it, Jim. Go for it.
All right. Yesterday, I decided I'm going to update because, several months ago, FreeBSD updated to version 15.0, and GhostBSD being based on FreeBSD, just like Mint is based on Ubuntu LTS. At some point, eventually, I had to update GhostBSD. They were on version 25 something, which was based on FreeBSD 14 point whatever the latest was. And now they're on version GhostBSD 26 point something based on FreeBSD 15 point whatever they're up to now. And here's the rub, okay? So as much as I love GhostBSD, I love the community. It's small but very helpful. They got a great forum. I love how everything worked, and I was able to get everything working on there. I'm in love with it. I was even thinking about doing a podcast just about BSD.
Ooh, okay.
But there's trouble in paradise now, because when I updated yesterday, right through the update manager, right? It took a while, but it worked. Right? Success. It worked. But this is two big buts. The problem is, I have a very small hard drive on that desktop. It's 60 gigs, which, as you know, really means it's 50 something gigs. And then maybe 20 of it was used by the operating system, which is fine. I had about 35 gigs free. Because GhostBSD uses ZFS as a file system, which you may or may not know, it's available on Linux too, but it sort of has like a snapshot capability, kind of
Yeah.
like what Timeshift does on Linux Mint.
Yeah, that's the main selling point of.
Yes, it's
Well,
one
one
of
of the main selling points of ZFS.
That's right. People love ZFS. I'm not loving it right now, because what happened for me was possibly two reasons. One, I have to admit, I was kind of ignorant about how ZFS works. I'd never gone into the terminal and set up, pools or brought in additional storage. And partly because my hard drive was so small, what happened was when I updated, and the update works smoothly. Like if I had a big giant hard drive, maybe I wouldn't have a cause to complain. But because I have such a small hard drive, when I upgraded and it worked just fine, everything looks the same almost, but it automatically made me first off, I manually made a so-called backup environment. That's one of the snapshots, right? And then
Mhm.
when it did the update, which took a while, but when it got done, it made an automatic backup environment. which is what you want, right? Because you want to fall back if the update doesn't work. You've got those previous snapshots to go back to. It's theoretically it's great, but however, what it did was it filled up almost my whole 35 gigabit hard drive. It's like almost no space left. I had like 3.2 gigs left, and I'm at a loss as to why. And I tried asking on the GhostBSD forum, and some of the answers I got were not that satisfying to me. I mean, it's two things. Either one, you would have to assume that the new version of GhostBSD is like that much more gigantic than the previous version, which I do not believe is the answer. Right? It's probably marginally bigger, right? Like when you update, you always expect on any operating system, you're going to lose some hard drive space. It's going to be a little bigger, but it shouldn't. You shouldn't eat up 35 gigs or 30 something gigs of free hard drive space.
Well, if you've got a snapshot of the entire old version of the operating system, you're going to at least double the amount of space that you're using.
Well, that's what happened.
Yeah, because that snapshot is going to literally be everything that was changed. You're gonna the stuff you're using is the changed version, and the stuff that was there when the snapshot was ran, that's what the snapshot is.
Yeah.
So if you delete that snapshot, you'll have your space back.
Well,
is that a thing?
Actually,
are we just assuming that people have copious amounts of disk space now, so they make decisions like this?
Yeah.
I mean, it is, let's be honest, if you go to buy, if you go to buy any laptop nowadays, before the whole RAM and SSD apocalypse, right?
Right.
You were getting minimum of 256 SSD, more commonly 512. You'd have to pay a lot more to get 1 terabyte, although probably now it probably works actually correctly. But people used to have quite a large markup. Apple were terrible for this, isn't it? 300 quid to go up from 256 to 512 or whatever. As I said, before the prices went up. Anyway, and so I think, because I've even got to the stage where I think you need minimum of 256 on a phone nowadays, especially because phones don't have any expandable storage anymore. Right. If you've got a 128 gig phone, it is possible to fill that up, reasonably quickly. And so I think because of that, there is this, the other thing could be that if I know, at least on Linux, people who use the kind of ZFS snapshot thing, they'll normally have a spinning Rust hard drive where it's saved there. I don't know if so it's not your operating system drive; it's a secondary hard drive which has your backups on. I don't know if that's something that GhostBSD can do.
Well, no, that's not. The way ZFS works is it will put the snapshot. Whenever you're taking a snapshot of anything inside of a pool, it's going to create a really locked down directory or a lockdown data set inside of that pool. So you're not going to go outside, because that pool needs to be able to work with that snapshot if it needs to go back or roll back or whatever you want to call it. ZFS is a different animal than most people are used to. And if you've got some kind of mechanism that is creating snapshots on a regular basis, but is not trimming the old snapshots off, then you're really going to run up against disk space problem real fast. I would go so far as to say that you might want to look into turning off the snapshot mechanism altogether, because you just don't. It's a nice thing to have, but if you don't have the extra disk space for it, then it's not going to work for you.
Yeah, that's my issue.
You are right, Bill, that actually, now that I think about it, the snapshot situation that I've got on my server, it's taking a snapshot of the ZFS pool, but the ZFS pool is only data. It's not the operating system, because the operating system's
right
on another device. And I think I talked about it before, so when I made my server, I bought something online and it should come with 120 gig SSD as the boot drive, and I already had these Western Digital 4 terabyte drives that I could put in as my data. And one day, server just wasn't working. I couldn't understand why, and then it was because it had entirely used up the 120 gig hard drive. Now, I never did find out exactly what was using up all the space. I did a lot of kind of going through, seeing if things were being backed up in the wrong place or things like that. But in the end, I just threw money at the problem and I just bought a 512 SSD. Now, bear in mind, I was lucky with this because I did this last August before the prices went nuts. And I just bought that, clonezilla'd it, and it was fine. After that, I've never had the problem since. Having said that, I've not checked how much disk space I've used actually, so it might be something I might need to do now.
My question is always about BSD is, why would anybody use it over Linux? I mean, I understand why like Mac OS and iOS and PlayStation, Sony use it because of the licensing. So that BSD you can use it it's got a permissive license, so you can do whatever you want with it, and you can still lock it down after you've created something based upon it. Whereas Linux, you're always obliged to keep the AGPL or the GPL all the time. But I never understood why, unless you've got a slight masochism. But
it's choice, isn't it? It's choice, isn't it?
It's for fun, I guess. Yeah, but
it feels like Linux is starting to become victim of the same big business mentality that has plagued Windows since the beginning. And for a large, and I don't know what the reasoning is, but in a very large way, it feels like the BSDs have remained completely separated from that. They don't lose their minds when somebody comes and takes the technology and uses Mac or makes Mac OS or an operating system for a game console out of it or something like that. They just don't care, and they just want to make something that people can get use out of. And there's something refreshing about that. Knowing if for no other reason than we know there is this other thing out there that if Linux completely, because we'll have nobody to blame but ourselves, because it's this time-honored discussion about getting new users, regular people to start using Linux. You don't really want that. You do not really want that, because the minute that happens, then everything that we love about Linux, the freedom, the ability to build something that works exactly the way you want it to, that all goes away in favor of a corporate imperative, which is what comes along with normal people using something. And
I totally agree. Absolutely. I mean, I've always thought the same. Whenever we're talking about this is the year of the Linux desktop, I'm always thinking, well, why do you want it? I mean, why do we want to take over from Windows? Because it'll just become a Windows.
I don't think people really took the time to really understand what it is they're talking about, what they're asking for right there. If you want normal people to use something, you're going to have to make it make sense for normal people, and then everything we love about it is gone. That is not likely to ever happen in the BSD world, just because, and I hate to say it, but in some large ways, it's because of the permissive licenses that a corporate entity would rather come along, see this thing, and then build their own thing out of it, rather than just steal what we've already got. And they're able to do that with a permissive license like a BSD license or an MIT or something like that, So I'm glad that these things are around. I have not taken the time to really. I installed BSD some years back, and I was able to get online with it and had to hook up a Ethernet cable to my laptop. But then again, that laptop had a Broadcom card in it, so I had to do that with Linux anyway until I had the right driver installed for it. So I am glad that it's out there.
Ever be able to get Flatpak on there? Now that would be quite Jim's shaking his head.
One of the benefits from their point of view is that they don't have all this, menagerie of a million different formats, app images, Flatpak, native packages, it pretty much everything is right there. That GhostBSD actually has a very nice, they call it the software station instead of the software manager, but almost everything is right there. I mean, I feel like I proved to myself that if I had a bet, and you told me I couldn't use Linux for a year, and could I survive, without cheating using BSD? I feel like I could do it easily, and I standing on my head, it would be easy. The only thing is now this monkey wrench was thrown in, and now I have a big dilemma. I have to decide, because ZFS and the way it works and all this hard drive space being gone, I could go one of two ways. One, first off, I have to upgrade this computer and put 8 gigs of RAM in it. I only have 4, right? Because I bought it very cheaply, and it was working great. It was working perfectly fine, but to update worked. But if I had to reinstall GhostBSD, let's say I wanted to just nuke and paste, start over, right? Learn my lesson from this experience, turn off the snapshots or whatever, right?
Yeah.
I would have to first get 4 more gigs of RAM. It might not cost that much, but here's the other thing. Now I need a bigger hard drive. So now I have to make 2 investments, assuming I wanted to keep using this old computer that I was so proud to get. The guy was apologizing to me when he sold it to me for $20 because it didn't have Wi-Fi. And as you know, for many young people, well, it can't connect to the internet if it doesn't have Wi-Fi, right? Of course, I knew better. One, I could have plugged a cable in if I really wanted to, but 2, I knew that I had 2 of these 20-year-old little wireless USB adapters.
You should send them to him.
I will. If you need, let me know the specs on that machine. I might have RAM that'll work for it. I'm almost certain.
He's normally got a drawer full of excess equipment, which, put it this way, if he was in this country, I would have already been around and taken off of his shit.
Right. Now here's the other alternative. I'm sufficiently peeved by this experience and the limitations that I've gone through that I'm seriously considering going a different direction and saying F GhostBSD and instead download the latest raw FreeBSD.
Learn how to do it yourself.
Do it all myself the whole way. Build it from scratch. It's going to be some pain points,
I mean, is that the BSD equivalent of LFS? Linux from scratch.
No, it's more like Arch. It's like going Arch.
Is it more like the Arch?
Yeah, more like Arch. Exactly. I would go to the TUI and install the X11.
But I wonder if it'll let you use something besides ZFS.
Yes. Well, I looked into this. FreeBSD. Everybody recommends ZFS, of course, but based on what I just told you, assuming I don't want to change my hardware, UFS, the Unix file system, is the other common natural file system. I always thought
ZFS in free and open source was a bit of a murky gray area, wasn't it? Aren't there like certain distros that won't put it in, and then others do, but they're often corporates, like Ubuntu allows ZFS and things like that. And I never really understood why, because it's not.
The kernel module is not the Linux tree itself is not compatible with kernel modules that are not GPL.
Okay,
so
and ZFS isn't GPL. Am I right?
What's that?
ZFS isn't GPL,
no.
is it?
And so anything like that has to be put. But the gray area was, okay, well, is it legal then to put it out of tree and then just ship it on the distro level? And nobody had the nerve to actually do it. And Canonical just said, well, fuck it, let's just do it, see what happens. Nothing happened.
And nobody cares because, the install base is small and it's not really worth
For people that want to use
Oracle
it without having to rebuild their kernel module every single time they get a new, because when you get a kernel update, that module has to be completely rebuilt. And I've never had any problems with it, but I've heard people talking about problems that can arise from rebuilding the kernel module. You don't have to do that with Ubuntu. It just comes as part of the tree and it just works out of the box. So, and I think they were worried about Oracle. I don't understand it completely myself because I thought OpenZFS, we need to get an expert on. Because I thought
we need an expert on for a million different reasons.
Yeah, no doubt. But I thought OpenZFS,
some of this shit, right?
I thought OpenZFS had diverged at right when Sun Microsystems sold off to Oracle, and so OpenZFS or OpenZFS, they're very similar. They split off, and that was a completely different project, and that's what's getting put into all of the modern open source operating systems, not the Oracle thing. That only exists on unusable Oracle Linux or whatever it's called.
I've never tried it, so I don't know.
It's just a Red Hat clone.
So okay, how would that ZFS then work with BSD then? So it would again be something on the same distro level rather than
it ships with it. So he would just be choosing not to use it.
Yeah, from raw FreeBSD, you can choose between ZFS or UFS. I'm calling it ZFS, ZFS, and UFS.
Look, 50% of this podcast is British.
You could choose between them, and if I did that, number one, I would have no problem using the measly 4 GB of RAM that I have, because that's a GhostBSD thing that they now require in their newest version 8 rather than 4. FreeBSD you can use almost, like 1 or 2 is no problem. And the second thing is, if I use UFS, I don't have this problem with snapshots and ZFS. I could just have UFS, and if I want to attach an external hard drive, I don't have to figure out about the pool and how ZFS works. All I have to do is just attach an external drive and format it, and just like you would on ext4. So,
well, I don't know a thing about UFS. I mean, I don't even know if that's an actual journaling file system. If there's any kind of, I doubt there's any checksumming going on. I doubt there's any like modern file system.
I'm sure I came across a YouTube video, because I remember myself maybe a year ago, 2 years ago, time's a flat circle. Trying to figure out all the different file systems. Yeah, all the different file systems. What exactly is ZFS? What exactly is ButterFS? What exactly is ext4 and FAT32 and all this kind of stuff. And there was one I remember that did talk about UFS. 12 kinds of file systems explained in 10 minutes, kind of thing.
You won't believe number 9.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, it was actually quite a useful video. I'll dig it out if I can, and I'll send it on to you, Jim.
Because I was wondering about some of the others, because I assume like Extended 4, Extended 3, XFS, I assume those are all GPL. And
yes, I think so.
I wonder, do you have the same problem using GPL software on a BSD as you do using BSD software on a GPL?
That's interesting.
I should know the answer to that.
Yes, you should, actually. Shame on you for not knowing the answer there, Hauser. Shame on you. Coming on it, pretending you're an expert.
Because at least Extended 4's got journaling, and it at least knows where the blocks are. I don't know. I suppose it just comes down to whatever works best for that operating system. But yeah, I am completely behind you on going the hard way, just because I've been down that road with the distribution which shall not be named on Linux. and for the same reason, because I'd run into these weird problems that you go looking for solutions and all you get is advice on
RTFM.
why are you using this? You should be using this, or why don't you have a bigger hard drive? All the things that you can't do. You're looking for how can I fix this to get it to stop acting this way?
Right.
And it just shows these people don't have a fucking clue as to the answer. But they want to say something.
The common, meme of someone telling you to RTFM. Okay. Now, I want to be clear that the GhostBSD community is very friendly and usually they're very helpful. But one guy, and he did it in a nice way, but he didn't RTFM me. He RTFB'd me by recommending a 200+ page book that I might purchase to learn about ZFS to answer my questions. And gave me a link and told me the authors' names.
Oh my God. This is like the Nerds². Yeah.
Yeah.
It's Nerds². Hey, name of the episode, Nerds².
What a pontificating windbag. Jeez.
Yeah. I mean, he was very nice about it, but I mean, like,
how dare you use our distro without an engineering degree from MIT or whatever? Good Lord.
Dear.
That's good. You gotta go find that guy.
I mean, that's almost like
find him and bring him before me so that he might dance for me.
Yeah, that's almost like Leo when Leo told me when I was making my website and he said, "Oh yeah, just learn some HTML."
Jeez.
And then what was the other one? When I asked Eric about what does compile from source mean, and we basically ended up with, man, try Gentoo. I mean, what could possibly go wrong?
Gentoo's fun though, I will admit. It's
my next distro review, if I can muster up the balls for it, it's not Gentoo, it's Void Linux. Because that sounds like a complete and utter, like Jim's kind of situation of doing it the hard way.
I didn't think it really existed when I first heard about it. I thought it was a joke. Like somebody was really a masochist, whoever would come up with something like Void. Because, but then again, it's
choice. Choice is good, apparently.
Choice is good. Yeah, apparently.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Like I said, I'm completely behind you.
And I feel like some kind of Luddite or like just acting out of anger, because I feel like I'm going backwards. Like, why would I want to insist on using this ancient file system and not embracing the, this modern, wonderful ZFS file system that everybody says is so awesome and is one of the great strengths of FreeBSD, because it didn't work for me, in my constrained hard drive space, or maybe honestly I didn't know how to set it up properly. But when you use Timeshift on Mint, you are encouraged to put the snapshots on an external drive, right? That's how we do it on Mint. All my Timeshift snapshots go onto my external drive. They're not filling up my system drive.
Those are rsync though.
Yes, philosophically, Timeshift is a fundamentally different animal to ZFS. I
install it with BTRFS. So if you install Mint with BTRFS, then you can use the same sort of thing. You can use snapshots.
And that's very. There's a lot of similarities. Some people that are big fans of ZFS will say there's not, but there absolutely is. ButterFS can sit in the root of a without you don't have to use this concept of partitions or anything like that with ButterFS. It can just go on the root, and then it has its own partitioning mechanism, which is the sub volumes, which are the data sets with CFS, and then each one of these things is recognized by a POSIX compliant operating system as directories inside of that file system. So if you didn't want to make any directories at all, you could have everything a subvolume or a data set if you wanted to, but you got to have your head wrapped around ZFS before. I love ZFS for servers to put stuff on. I don't know that it would be my first choice, if it would ever be my first choice, to actually install the operating system on, just because of its the differences in how it works.
Some people really love it. I mean, you often hear them on some of the other more deeper podcasts, because you can send your snapshot to another machine and then you can replicate, you can easily back up. But for me, that's most of it's just whoosh right over my head. It's something.
I feel so heard with Bill talking like this. Like, I feel justified somehow.
Oh, yeah. I mean,
you should stick with it though, Jim. I think you should really stay with. I mean, I even fancy having a go, and I'm trying to hold back my temptation to do it, because I can just see like hours disappearing. But you should stay with it.
Well, then I need a new hard drive, and I need more RAM, and I'd have to
Bill, send it over to him. Send it over,
and then learn the ins and outs of ZFS to make sure.
Just spend another 20 quid and get it. You'll be fine.
Wow.
Have you got? Does it have an NVMe drive in it?
No, it's a regular SSD, 60 gigs, very small. But again, I was happy at the time, $20 SSD. I thought it was perfect for an experimental machine.
I've got a 500 here. I haven't even opened yet.
Yeah.
There you go. See, Bill?
Yeah.
See, you can do your good Samaritan act. Yeah.
Just making sure I wasn't talking out of my ass. Yep. No, it's not open. Samsung. Give me your address. Let me know the specs on that machine too. I might have RAM for you too.
Yeah,
I got drawers of RAM.
Do you say in America that did it fall off the back of a lorry? Do you say that?
No,
I fall off the back of a truck.
I just cannot stop buying
stuff. Yes, once you get I was thinking about this. I have now known William the Third, senior, whatever, right? For a good number of years now. 3 years is coming up since I first came onto Midcast, right? And if it's one thing that I feel that he's a kindred spirit, is he buys as much shit as I do. In fact, he probably buys more. And he's in the same way that I've got, like, in this room at this very moment in time, 5 separate computers. Do you know
Every
what I mean?
one of these machines I have, though, I built. I bought these parts old and used, and except for the hard drives, I mean, you can't really do that. But I'll get those when I haven't bought a hard drive in a couple of years, just because that's just not been a thing.
I mean, I do have to be honest, and I admit that I can't afford to, but I've found whenever I've done a hardware upgrade, like say whether it's on the server or whether on this podcasting box, or like most recently, I bought a new battery for the Dell Latitude distro hopping device. I've never regretted it. I've always thought to myself, why the hell didn't I do this for? Why did I struggle on for no reason?
Yeah.
When I only needed to. But I do understand that I've been blessed and I do have disposable cash, sort of, as long as the wife doesn't find out. Anyway, I think we've hit the hour now, Bill.
I think we have.
Yeah, doesn't time fly when you're having fun?
Another good crack by the Linux OTC crew.
Yeah. Soon to be rechristened BSD OTC.
No, it is a cool thing to follow, and I could probably build another machine and make it into a BSD machine. That might be kind of fun if I only had. My thing is time.
You've now destroyed his weekend now. What's left of his weekend now, Jim?
Yeah. Yep. So we'll have you back on. Well, we'll have you back on anytime.
It's gonna be choosers. Do you know what I mean?
we need to talk about that real quick. So you might have noticed on the audio only version of the show, the opening little jingle, it says that Linux OTC is part of the wider Linux Syndicate family, and that is kind of a thing. You don't really need to understand it, except that if you follow us in Matrix, that's another thing we need to talk about. We started a Matrix room because we're kind of fed up in a really big way with Discord, and Matrix Matrix is open source and it feels more like dog fooding, what we should be doing anyway. And since we've started using it, we really liked it. We've got a room. I'm going to get it on the website as quick as I can. Until then, just know that it exists. Maybe go searching for it. But yeah, let us know what you think. Show at linuxotc.org or hit us up on the few socials that we're on. We do have a Mastodon. Links to that on the website, linuxotc.org. We will be back next week. Until then, I'm Bill.
I'm Charlie.
I'm Jim.
And I'm Majid.
See you, folks.